Hello, my name is Deryn Verity, and I'm happy to be speaking to you here at the Teacher Journeys Conference. I last participated in this conference back in 2013. Since leaving Japan, I have been teaching at Penn State, a large public university in the United States. Besides directing a writing program for international students, I am the designated undergraduate studies officer for my department. This means that I attend periodic meetings and get updates on the education of undergraduate students. But our department, Applied Linguistics, is primarily a graduate department. We award only graduate degrees, and we don't have an undergraduate major. So normally, undergraduate committee meetings produce only marginally relevant information for us. In March 2020, when the campus closed down, essentially overnight, all of us just got on with the emergency shift to online teaching and were grateful when the semester ended in early May. However, as the summer rolled on, it became clear that everyone, lecturers to senior tenured professors, was going to have to learn a lot more than we already knew about how to teach well online for the upcoming fall semester. Zoom and Canvas were about to become our best friends. This meant that even in our small department, 15 or so highly experienced professors were suddenly thrown back into the shallows of novicehood. Good teaching is a mark of our graduate program. After all, we educate teachers, and much of our research is on teacher development and principled pedagogy. Somewhat separate from that central emphasis, though, is an institutional commitment to excellent undergraduate education, which, as I mentioned, we are not deeply part of. We participate in undergraduate education primarily by offering a handful of general education classes, which are open to all students who need credits in the humanities and social sciences. Various faculty members teach our gen eds, and the university puts a premium upon having senior tenured faculty in the undergraduate classroom. But scholars, even in our department, known for good teaching, are not necessarily explicitly knowledgeable about pedagogy, even when they themselves are good teachers in person. None of us had the necessary skills for facing a Zoom room with 60 undergraduates. So it was during the summer of 2020 that my official connection to undergraduate instruction suddenly became relevant. Out of all my colleagues, only I really was in the communication chain about the many resources which the university was quickly compiling to support online pedagogy. Only I bothered to read through the many mailings informing us of the webinars and workshops that filled the summer schedule. Only I sat down to write my 2 fall semester classes from scratch, a project that was helped by the fact that we were more or less locked down and had to stay at home for a couple of months. The outcome, as my title suggests, is something of a surprise to me and probably to those who know me. Somehow I became the go-to person for questions relating to online teaching, how to use Canvas, what to do on Zoom, and how to put together an online class curriculum. So how did I become the tech person? I have to be honest and say that I enjoyed the role reversal, but like everything during that strange time, it wasn't normal or predictable or even really explicable. It just happened. Like this droopy houseplant, the suddenness of the change of pedagogical climate knocked many of us for a loop. What to do? How to do it? Online? Everything? Really? In the College of Liberal Arts, there's this small office, Digital Pedagogy by name, dedicated to helping instructors learn how to incorporate online tools into their regular teaching. We were very much an in-person institution before the pandemic, and these folks had a very low-key profile before the spring of 2020. But then, just as we were getting used to wearing masks and keeping socially distanced, we also began to hear from this office almost every day. Luckily for us, they were prepared to jump in and make it possible, if not easy, for even the most techno-reluctant among us to become more proficient in online delivery of content. There were two main university-sponsored sites that we were encouraged to review regularly: Keep Teaching for faculty and Keep Learning for students. New materials were added practically every day. On top of that, the Digital Pedagogy staff offered several webinars and training sessions every week in the months of June and July. As well as training on Zoom and Canvas, they also offered training on other video apps, online quizzes, collaborative tools, lesson design, assessment, and so on. They were offering riches, no doubt, but maybe too many. It was a bit overwhelming. As my slide says, there were hundreds of pages on each website that we could look at. Guidance from the top of the university changed almost daily, and all of us were hearing for the first time about different instructional modes, different ways of connecting with students. Still, since it seemed that nobody else in my department was even aware of all this support, and because I knew that I was on the schedule to teach actually 2 undergraduate general education courses, one with 60 and one with 24 students, I realized that at least for myself and my students, I better get some training quick. To keep things manageable, I chose to attend just 3 workshops: building community in the online class, engaging students online, and using Canvas to support good online pedagogy. My rationale was that while I was already a good basic user of Canvas and I'd written and taught several asynchronous online classes over the past decade, everything about synchronous, video-based instruction was basically new to me. I decided to start small and focus narrowly. Now, my purpose today is not to go over everything I learned or to train you how to do good online pedagogy. But I would like to emphasize that what I was learning was really not new to me. It was a form of relearning, restructuring good pedagogical practices, translating them from a familiar to an unfamiliar setting. Having to pay conscious attention to things that were otherwise automatic during regular in-person instruction helped me to improve and articulate my own beliefs and my own understandings. This sample webpage from one of the undergraduate general education courses I was writing that summer reflects a lot of what I learned from those training sessions. Be explicit. Be clear. Say everything. Better yet, say it twice. Leave nothing to be inferred or guessed. Be friendly. Give students practice in using the basic features of Canvas that they will need to participate regularly in the class. Post a weekly announcement reminding them of the key points of the week's lessons. Reiterate the readings and remind them of assignments and deadlines. In fact, remind students of deadlines regularly, early, and often. The page I just showed you is from a first-year seminar class. The other gen ed that I was preparing that summer was one of our most popular classes, Language, Culture, and Social Interaction. We normally fill 2 sections of 60 students every semester, although it was reduced to 43 for the online delivery in the fall of 2020. This sample page reflects some of the design elements I learned to include: friendly conversational language, colorful elements where useful, visual variety, and an emphasis on small chunks of text. And again, continuingly explicit contextualization. Where does this lesson fit? How does it fit? Where are we coming from and where are we going next? I assiduously practiced what the Office of Digital Pedagogy preached. I made sure to include a wide range of assignment types, assess them as required, but keep them low stakes, and provide frequent chances to complete similar tasks over the course of the semester. I devised online tasks for Canvas and for Zoom that highlighted interpersonal interaction, sharing of appropriate and relevant personal information and experiences, and I kept reiterating the collaborative and collegial dimensions of university-level study, research, and presentation. Obviously, this is not rocket science. It's a set of good pedagogical principles modified for online delivery. But it was the simplicity, what you might call the face validity, the clarity of these this limited set of techniques that came in handy when, to my surprise, my colleagues, those more senior and those less senior, started to call me that summer. Could you help me with this design feature for my class? How do I do X or Y on Canvas? On Zoom, can I do A? Can I do B? Can I do C? So without specifically planning to, I went from tending my own garden to helping my colleagues cultivate their own best practices. Having decades of teaching experience, I had learned to embrace my inner novice when it came to pandemic online teaching. To the same end, I tried to be supportive and helpful to my colleagues when they, eagerly or reluctantly, realized that they were not prepared for online remote synchronous teaching in the fall semester that was approaching fast. Every question, every concern, even when I didn't have a complete answer, was a welcome spark for a conversation. And though theoretically I could have directed them to seek answers from the folks in the Office of Digital Pedagogy, I felt that for several reasons, my colleagues would actually appreciate less overwhelming and more targeted low-key responses to their questions. Because I had deliberately limited my focus when it came to improving my own digital pedagogy skills, in a way, I was actually better placed to help my colleagues, whose skill sets were even smaller than mine. And perhaps I could say whose reluctance or hesitation to use Zoom and Canvas were perhaps greater than mine. I could meet them exactly where they were and give them just enough information to help them figure out what it was they wanted to do and how to do it in this new context. And just as the workshops had emphasized to me, I emphasized to them, be explicit. Tell your students everything that you want, plan, and hope for them to do. Students are relatively forgiving if you try something tricky and technological and it falls flat, but they will not be happy if you fail to remind them several times of all the deadlines and all the requirements. In my first year seminar, students picked up on this and really thanked me for it, as you can see in these responses to the final interactive discussion board task of the semester. I'd asked them to comment on the things they liked and didn't like about the unexpectedly online introduction to university life and study that they had experienced that fall. And I heard from my colleagues that their students expressed similar appreciation for a well-organized and informative Canvas site. So the pandemic was pretty hellish for a lot of people and for a lot of reasons. The sudden and urgent shift from doing what we knew how to do so well to struggling to do it in a new context and under difficult and sometimes scary circumstances. Well, that was a painful and sometimes embarrassing and sometimes frustrating experience for us all. And sometimes, just sometimes, it offered a moment of surprising beauty and connection. Like the droopy houseplant I showed you before, with the help of sunshine and water and food, which came to us in the form of expert training, collegial sharing, and hard work, the members of our department had a relatively good semester that fall. Online teaching will never be our favorite thing, I venture to guess. But we perked up when we realized that what we knew was still valid and relevant as long as we could encode it differently and talk about it in new ways. So while my pandemic journey was relatively trouble-free, it did give me a new identity within the applied linguistics community at Penn State. I still don't see myself as some kind of tech expert, though I continue to field occasional calls for help. And I don't think that anything I've shared with you today is earth-shattering or incredibly new. But I learned anew the truth of that old saying: to learn something well, teach it to somebody else. And though my own learning was very raw and undigested when I began to pass it on, I hope that this reminder is welcome and will go with you when you leave the conference and my show. We all have a stake, so to speak, in everyone else's flower bed. The great gift of this role reversal for me was to realize that small gifts are often more useful than big ones. By picking up a light burden and then teaching others how to bear it too. I ended up helping my colleagues more than I would have by diligently sharing every single email and every single workshop announcement with them. My takeaways from this experience: be bold, try new things, ask for help, give help when asked, try to be patient and encouraging at every turn. Learn about resources quickly, choose your burdens, and choose your gifts. Share what you learn and enjoy the journey. Again, thank you so much for listening to my talk and for sharing your own journey with us this summer. Thanks to the organizers and to you, the audience. I wish everyone a healthy and productive year to come.